What's up, everybody? So I get this question all the time, and it is, how much do artists charge for you to create a comic book with them? Or how much does a comic book cost? Or how much does a graphic novel cost? And I'm not talking about printing. They're asking about how much do artists cost? How much does it cost to produce, not how much does it cost to print? And that's what I'm going to go over today. I'm going to go over what are the average rates for the different tiers of artists for you to make a comic book. And I'm going to start from the top and I'm going to go down. And I'm going to just start right now. So, in general, here's what I'm talking about. Whenever I say a top creator, I mean that when you go to a comic book shop and you look at the publisher at the top, right, left, whatever corner of that comic book, and it says Marvel, DC, Boom, Dark Horse, Image, or IDW, one of like the top 6 publishers in the space, and you open that up and you open up the credits page and you're wondering, how much does it cost for me to get this interior artist who did this book? That artist who's doing those top tier books, most likely to work with you as a creator owned writer, they will most likely charge you somewhere between $300 to $350 per page just for pencils and inks. Now, it could go a bit lower and a bit higher. You know, it might go down to 250 or up to 400 depending on who that artist is. If they strictly just do Marvel and DC, it might go up to the 400. If there's somebody that's done, a couple of creator-owned books, an IDW book, and maybe a few Image or something, they might be 250. But someone that just consistently works with top-tier publishers, you're probably looking at 300, 350 per page. For just pencils and inks, you can add another $100 to $150 on top of that if you're wanting letters and colors per page. Okay, now, but this, like I said, these are basically, if you're going after the top of the crop. Now remember, this space is not that big. There aren't a whole lot of people that are doing just this, so they charge, it's gonna be expensive for those artists alone. This is why most of the time, as a creator-owned writer that's looking to hire artists, we go a level lower, which I'll go over those rates in a second. And then you might hire a top tier cover artist, and cover artists will charge anywhere between, like, top tier, you're looking at over $1,000. You're looking at anywhere between $1,000, $1,500 to almost sometimes even $3,000 for one cover from top tier, the biggest names in the game. So you might, go with, so the next level below that, these artists that have done books with professional publishers, and they may have done one or two books with Image or with Boom or Dark Horse, but most of their work from the past is either not that much, either they don't have much themselves, or they might have a couple of small press publishers under their belt, or they have a really popular creator owned or like a self-published book. Those artists are probably going to charge somewhere between 150 to 250 per page. Let's just say on average 200. And like I said, that's just inks alone, pencils and inks, no colors. Like I said, kind of any tier, you're looking at anywhere between another 100 to 150 to get letters and colors. Because colorists at the same time, sort of almost any tier, they could charge anywhere between 50 and 150 per page for their colors. And then same with letters, they could charge anywhere from $20 to $80 to $100 for letters per page. So now, if you're looking for professional quality, but the artist has not done any work with any notable publishers, or they may be a really well-known artist. So let's just say someone that's sort of has a huge Instagram account, but they don't have any sequential art books, meaning they've never really done or had a published comic book. They may have done a few covers, or they may have done a web comic. So they're professional quality, but they're not a known professional artist in this space. Those artists, these are probably who you're going to want to try to reach out to. And these artists are going to charge more like roughly $100 per page for pencils and inks. Okay, because they just have no notable work under their belt in the sequential art space. And in order for them to break in and get their feet wet, so to speak, as a professional comic artist, they can't charge the top rates. So they are going to charge something more like 100. Now it might vary. It might be 110 or 120, but most likely they're not going to be charging more than 150 like a professional grade artist will. And they're definitely not going to be able to charge 300 like the top creators are. Now, if you're brand new and you're wanting to collaborate with someone that's a new creator, or if you are a new creator or an artist that's pretty fresh to the scene, you have no work under your belt, you only have, your high school or college portfolio, you have a few short comic strips or a web comic, and that's all you have to your name, and you don't have any social media following or anything like that, you're going to struggle to get you're definitely most likely not going to be able to charge more than 100 per page. You'll be able to charge somewhere between $50 and $100 per page. And that's if your art is good. If your art is not good or not like worthy of, if your samples don't look like they belong on the shelves, or if it does not reach the quality standards of what you might consider professional grade comic book, you may not even be able to make 50 per page. You may be looking at like 25. I know that sounds terrible, but that's just the thing. Those are the amateur rates. And that's why, someone that's professional grade, deserves to make 350. Now, these numbers actually sort of, although there's a wide spread, for those that are professionals in the space, have actually gone up over the years. And this is good for the artists, and it also makes it tough on all of us that are writers, because these rates, the professional rates, and even just like professional grade, if you think about it, if you're paying $300 just for pencils and inks, and then you're adding another 100 on top of that for colors and lettering for professional grade people, and you're then basically a 22-page comic book, you're looking at $8,800 that you're spending just on one comic book. Now, if you're trying to turn that into a whole graphic novel, and let's just say it's 5 issues, you're looking at $45,000 for a graphic novel. Trying to earn that money back is almost not, like, guaranteed not going to happen. Even if you get on with the biggest publishers, they most likely will not be able to earn that back for you even though those are the professional rates. In order for you to make back $45,000 from a graphic novel that's 5 issues, you would have to sell at the top 10% for every single issue. That means that you need to launch at over 50,000 copies sold, and then you need to maintain above 10,000 for every single one of those subsequent issues. And then the graphic novel also needs to sell at top numbers, and you need to sell thousands of the graphic novels. And then on top of that, you need to have multiple other revenue streams aside from the direct market where you can somehow profit from that IP in order to make that money back that you're spending on that. You basically, in order to make back what you have to spend to make a professional grade graphic novel, everyone involved in that book needs to have a following and bring eyeballs to that book. And if you don't get a publisher, you have to hype the heck out of it in order to make $45,000 back on a Kickstarter campaign. And since you would have to pay for the printing on the Kickstarter campaign, you're looking at probably another 20% on top of that you're going to have to make back on the campaign. So you're looking at $50,000 minimum that you need to make back self-publishing it. And so the point being is that it is extremely hard for you to hire professional grades at their rate and then make that money back. And definitely to make a profit. You have to hit at the top level on every single avenue, and then you have to hustle it, go to cons. You have to hope that you can then, get it licensed to become movie or TV, a TV show or something, and then you also need to sell it directly, sell signed copies on Whatnot and things like that. Like, you have to go hard in the paint in order to make that work. This is why when you watch my videos where I go over everything, is you have to find diamonds in the rough. You have to find someone that has a professional grade quality, but they are not established enough to have to charge top rates. They're just new to the game. If you can find someone that's a new creator, or a high level artist that wants to get into comics, but they've never done any sequential art, and they're willing to take a risk on you to do a short 4-issue limited series, black and white, and you work with them as they build up their portfolio basically with you, to where you are giving them exposure. That's what you want to do, because then you're going to get it at a lower rate. Or you want to get an artist, and instead of paying them up front, you need to somehow work with them to where you might pay them half their page rate or something like that, and then give them a certain percentage of the rights on the back end, to where they make some of the profit, or whatever gross revenue the creative team makes, something like that. Because otherwise it's just really hard to make it work. Because you'll be and then it's also very hard to find these top level creators. Even if you're willing and open to pay that amount, they have, they're sought after not just by you, they're sought after by the big publishers that they work with. So they're getting all kinds of work regularly anyway. So if you think about it, I mean, even those that take on a lot of work, they're not making a whole lot of books each year. They might be able to finish one graphic novel a quarter, so they might be releasing 4 books a year. You aren't going to be one of those 4, most likely. You might be able to break in and be able to work with them on a one-shot or something like that. But in general, that's why you want to start, small. Start with those, especially if you're a new writer. Or it may not be a new writer, but a new writer in the comic space, is you'll want to start, somewhere in the middle to lower end. So start with, professional grade creators, but not necessarily the top ones, or start with pretty much amateurs that are just high quality. And all this, unfortunately, this is probably the whole reason I bring this up, is all this requires research. You have to, the artists aren't just on some forum somewhere. Anybody that's done any kind of research in this is, you might go to a space, you might go to Facebook, you might go to Discord, you might go on groups in some way, shape, or form, even Fiverr, and you might be looking at artists, and you'll just, those that are cheap aren't necessarily good, and those that are good are just way too expensive for you. What you have to do is you have to be reading a lot. You have to go on Comixology. You have to go on League of Comic Geeks. You have to go into your comic shops, and you have to look at the books, and you have to look at you have to go to Webtoon. You have to look at all these, stories, and just look at the art you like, and just come up with a big, long list of all the artwork that you like, all the books that you like, all the artists that you like, and then you get those names of those creators, and then you basically go down the list of your favorites, and then start trying to reach out to them and just figuring out what they charge and what kind of books that they might be willing to work with. And then if you have your pitches to pitch people, you have to treat them with respect and treat them like they are, a big deal for you to work with them, and not just some kind of hired gun. Imagine as if this is you trying to find someone to direct your movie, and if you're trying to get a great director, they have 10,000 scripts that they go through all the time. Treat artists in the same way. If you treat them the opposite, and if you treat artists like they don't deserve you or something like that, or as if you're doing them a favor by giving them work, you're going about this all wrong, because that is not the case. Um, they are essentially the directors of your story. You're the writer, you might be the creator, but you can't just like treat them like you're hiring them to fix your gutters on your house. You are hiring them to collaborate with you on an epic story that has huge potential to be mega IP and something that you guys might be working on for years. All right. That's all I am going to go over today. For anybody that doesn't know who I am, I'm Lord Max Hoven. I'm a comic writer, film producer. I do a lot of different things now. Go to my website, hovencrow.com. I have ebooks on all this stuff. I have a course on all this, how to write hit books. I wrote It Eats What Feeds It. I wrote Liquid Kill. I have multiple other books. I've written screenplays. I've sold screenplays. Anything that you're wanting to know about it, comic space, indie film space, I go over that on my channel here. And I do it all for free. And almost anything that I sell, it's probably the lowest you can find in the market. My course is $50. My ebooks are $5. Um, so it's not like it's crazy. And of course, the books that I have that you want to read for mine, they're available on my website or on my publisher's website, and all the links are either down below in the description or on my website, hovencrow.com. Thanks, everybody.